Hi everybody, so today I'm going to be reviewing the Curvy Girl Underbust Corset made by AZAC's Accomplice. So I'm going to be making some slight modifications to this corset, but I wanted to show you what it looks like before I start my modifications. So here is the front, the side, the back, and the other side. And now it's several hours later, the sun has gone down. I've made some modifications on this corset, so I'm going to show it again at all angles. So here is the front, the side, the back, and the other side. So the three modifications that I had made on this corset: firstly, I had added more grommets in the back, particularly below the waist. So now there's not that much of a large gap between the grommets, and I feel that I have more control cinching in that area, and it's not always pulling out and sort of bowing. The second thing I did was I removed the Modesty panel. I added a twill, a couture lining to it, and I boned it with metal boning, and I resuspended it as a floating Modesty panel. The third thing that I did was I removed the 1/4 inch wide spring steel in the back on either side of the grommets, and I replaced it with a stronger spring steel. So it's not as sturdy as it would be if I had been able to use 1/2 inch wide spring steel, but I was obviously limited to the width of the boning channels that were already there. But you'll notice that there is no longer as much bowing in the back here in the waist area, and I'm able to cinch much more tightly. It feels much sturdier. Now, in terms of the length and the fit of this, as you can see, it is extremely curvy, and it is meant for a curvy girl. On the website, this size, it's supposed to have a 31-inch rib cage, 20-inch waist, and 32-inch hips. Now, when I received the corset and I measured it after a couple of times of breaking it in, I noticed that the waistline, when it was fully closed, it was a little bit over 21 inches. Now, whether that was a manufacturing error or whether the twill had actually stretched over time, I'm not sure. It could have been one or the other, it might be both, but I just wanted to let you guys be aware of that discrepancy. Now for the length of this corset, the highest part is the center front. This is 12.5 inches high, and so it's good for pretty much most people who have an average torso. Now, if you are a little bit shorter, then you might find this to be more long line on you, so you might want to contact the corseteer and figure out if this is a suitable corset for you. I have a rather long torso, let me remind you, and this is still a little bit long line on me. I do like that it is long line because then those girls who have a little bit more flesh around their hips, they won't have the same kind of muffin top kind of squeezing out from underneath the corset the way that you might when you're wearing a higher cut corset. So here is a Curvy Girl underbust lying flat, and you can see even when it's lying flat, it's still curvy. So with this corset, I did pick out the binding and take a peek inside because this corset is so lightweight compared to some of the other ones I've seen. I was curious about the construction. So the material for it, it's mostly 3 layers. Let me just open this up. The fashion fabric is a very lightweight hot pink satin. I chose this color, but you also have the choice to order it in black, white, purple, baby pink, or red satin. So you're not just limited to the hot pink. And this hot pink satin is flat lined to a light woven cotton underneath. The strength layer of the corset, the real strength, is this twill lining right here. In terms of the construction, when I peeked inside, the seams were all faux flat felled. So basically it was all top stitched, so that's pretty strong. Over here, it looks like there are external boning channels, but these are simply decorative. The baby pink satin strips are only sewed to the top pink satin. It's not sewn right down to the twill here. The boning is inserted into channels created between the twill lining here and strips of canvas that are laid down inside. I've never seen that method used before, and I will have to experiment with that in the future. You can also see that there are some big hip gores, two big ones, one on each side, so that does contribute to the curviness of this corset. And looking at the back here, the binding around the hip gores and around the top and the bottom of the corset match the decorative channels. But there is no boning around the hip gores. This binding here is simply decorative. And the binding is machine finished, which means you can see the stitches on the inside and also on the outside here. And when I feel between the layers, I feel a waist tape in there. I'm guessing it's about 1/2 inch wide, and you can also very faintly see the outline of it when I hold it up to the strong light right there. For the Modesty panel, you can see that there is a single layer unboned Modesty panel in the back made from the same hot pink satin. You can see that it's been serged so that it doesn't fray. And also there is an unstiffened Modesty placket in the front that prevents any skin from showing through between the busk and also prevent pinching of your skin. So the busk itself is a standard flexible busk, as you can see here. It's 1/2 inch wide on each side, and then there is another 1/4 inch wide flat steel bone on either side just to reinforce the front. If I take my measuring tape here, you can see that the length of the busk is 11 inches. I think on the website it said that it was 10 inches, but on mine it's 11. And the full length of the corset, or the full height of the corset from the very top to the bottom of the binding, is 12.5 inches. Turning the corset on the side here, let's focus on the boning. So there are 14 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones in this corset. There are no spiral bones in this corset. They're finished quite nicely. When I peeked inside of the corset, the ends were rounded and were dipped, so it's not like it's going to poke through from what I saw. But even though they're flats, they are extremely flexible. So you can see here, like I can actually make the ends touch. That's one of the reasons that I actually looked inside, because I didn't know if it was plastic or not. They are steel, they're just extremely flexible. You can consider this a feature since the bones bend over extreme hip spring and extreme curviness, but because of the same very flexible bones were used right here in the back by the grommets, it doesn't feel quite as sturdy when I tie it up. Another change that I made to the corset was I took out the 1/4 inch wide spring steel boning on either side of the grommets, and I replaced it with some sturdier 1/4 inch wide spring steel boning. I would have put in 1/2 inch wide spring steel, but the boning channels don't allow for that. So in my left hand here, you see the old stuff, and you can see it's quite wobbly. And in my right hand you see the new stuff, and it's significantly more sturdy. If I put them both on their side like that, I don't know if you can see the difference in the thickness right there, but the new stuff that I'm going to be putting into it is about twice as thick. And if you see how much the old boning can curl upon itself here, like I said, it's extremely flexible, whereas the new stuff right here, this is about as far as I can curl it without it bending back on itself. So that's what I'm going to be putting in there. And moving on to the grommets, there are 20 two-part size 0 grommets, so 10 grommets on each side. I think this corset could have used about 4 more grommets, especially near the bottom here, because I noticed that there was a lot of bowing and gapping in the back when I tried to tie it up. But as you can see here, the grommets themselves are fairly good quality. You can see that there's no fraying or pulling out of the grommet from the fabric, so that is good. However, on the underside here, you can see that there are a couple of split grommets, like there and here, and so when I'm tying up the corset, whenever the ribbons are moving past that frayed area, it tends to catch a tiny bit. The laces themselves, they're 1/2 inch wide double-faced satin ribbon, and it's the same baby pink that matches the decorative binding and the channels on this corset. Very strong because it's double-faced satin, and it's very pretty, and it has not frayed much, even with the slight catching on the grommets. The one thing that I did change about the lacing was that I relaced it to have the inverted loops here so that I could cinch my waist easier. So the price of this corset, according to their Etsy store, was originally $225. However, I got this corset for $165, not including shipping. So that's it for the Curvy Girl Corset review. As usual, if you have any questions, leave me a comment or send me a message, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.